Welcome back. This is Red. A commonly answered question I hear influencers get around to, although I myself have never been asked it, is what is your current D&D setup? To answer that, how honest are we going to be? I've sunk a lot of money into this hobby. I have an ideal setup. For some reason I'm still working towards, though honestly may never be able to play. I've got this small room in my house sectioned off. I already have this 3-foot long by 2-foot wide dragon head mounted to the wall above a fox fireplace. I've got physical books for inspiration and game references crowding a shelf, as well as an army of unpainted miniatures on their own shelf, store-bought minis on a small section of another shelf, with some DIY terrain between them and some self-painted minis. The dream game here would be just a little bit more work on the aesthetics. Get a game table with one of those recessed play areas and removable tabletop. Get some segmented lights to simulate the sun's location, or torch lights, or some dark magic. And some speakers with my current soundboard or an improved one. That being said, there are two variations on how my setup is. I'm currently running a 3.5 campaign, and I believe I set up my Roll20 account back in 2013. I didn't really get much use out of it until my 5e games took off in roughly 2016. I need to say, I'm not rich. I'm actually quite cheap. I don't pay for memberships. Honestly, most of my games theater of the mind, and I myself wouldn't mind just a blank grid for the combat. So, I'm still a noob when it comes to how to use Roll20. Playing 5e, the support you get, even as a free user, phenomenal. The biggest issue is the occasional need to delete maps or tokens to add new ones. It's not that bad. That being said, support for older game systems, 3.5, is non-existent. I can't just pull a bare stat block, slap it on the map, and go. If I want these random encounters, I need to have them planned out. Or sitting at a small desk with a large computer, the mess of my life around me, a book in my lap to flip between pages, roll the dice, and reference the modifiers, then of course, with pre-making the character sheets, eventually I'll need to delete them and upload a new map or delete an old PC. Something somewhere has to go. And there's always that chance I'll have to recreate the exact thing I choose to delete. I finally made the realization that there are better VTTs. Or better for my need. VTT being a virtual tabletop, if it needs clarification. I had a player preaching to me about the wonders of Foundry, the cost effectiveness of it, and I don't have Foundry. There's a VTT out there called MapTool, and it's a very inconvenient name. Makes searching for it rather difficult. And if you do find it, what you will find is a website that appears to be from 2006 of a Java program that maybe it helps you build maps to run in your D&D campaign. However, it is a free VTT. It comes with line of sight. It has in-game lighting, the vision wall setup. As far as I can see, it supports all except for moving map options. Currently, or in the framework I have. I had tried this VTT a few times in the past, and I always gave up on it. I never understood how to use it. It was a lot to get into. But once learning what a framework was, which is just someone else has already done the programming to run the game that I want to run, it took me about 2 days of playing around to get familiar with where everything is, and I'd say I'm at the same level in 2 days of that as I am with my understanding on how to use Roll20. And it took me about 2 to 8 days to get familiar with how to use Roll20, so being as good as I am now, I'd say it's probably just as quick to pick up. However, I'm not going to discredit the fact that my experience with Roll20 may have made learning this new map tool, I guess new is not the right term, but learning this new VTT may have been easier because of such. Anyways, I use map tools to make my character sheets. I map out realms, etc. I would run this off my computer as well as Discord for voice, and the game would go. I wouldn't have to worry about the server crashing or anything like that. Everything I need is stored right on my computer, and I'm paranoid and back it up nearly daily to my Google Cloud because days of my life have been poured into this program, and I would be devastated if it was gone. That being said, I have a player who currently is a little obstinate. They do not wish to download MapTools, so I run MapTools on my computer for me. And we use Roll20 for the players. Going there, we go there less often as combat needs. I would not choose this over a table, pencil, paper, math rocks, but this is a world we're in. Once I manage to convince all my players, Roll20 is out. Alongside my VTT, I mentioned I use Discord for voice and creating the events for the game dates. Voice mod, which I bought when I was living in Turkey for about $3, and I believe it's $50 in the States. I can barely justify the $3 for the amount of times I've used it, but it's enjoyable. All my notes are stored in a program called Obsidian. I'm not sponsored, but I am a strong advocate for both MapTool and Obsidian. Both free, and they store locally on your device. I like Obsidian because it gives me the sense that there's more depth to my world. It allows me to visualize that depth. Originally, I would use Word or sticky notes, Notepad, and I'd typically just be making plans, quick reference notes near the top, dash lines dropping down for events that occurred in the past. I keep the most recents at the top, and it kind of felt very linear. It was this thing might happen or that thing might happen, etc. My notes, of course, would be pretty vague, like NPC name, the quests that they offer the players, and maybe the players would never meet them, and I would just delete the note. With Obsidian, I create multiple note pages. You can put them in folders to organize them. The program allows you to link between notes. So this is where the magic comes in. I have a note tab, I call it Plan. On it, I write all my in-game notes for myself. Dates, repercussions for the player's actions, things that the trickle effect for how the players affected the world, or what in the world will affect the players at what dates. I then expand or minimize that note inside my plan page, and I have a few random encounters also minimized. There I have the obvious course of actions the players will take based on the last session. I'm not scripting it, but like with my last game, my players robbed a dragon and now they're fleeing. They said they're going to the nearest town to get a boat, riding the boat down this great river to the ocean, getting on another boat and then crossing the ocean. Well, my plan for the dragon's reactions are, they're there. The encounter that they will have along the path, I can say, I said I can link pages. My notes has a link to the dragon. I typed in the dragon's name, and it links to the dragon's note page. If and when I have the need, I don't need to shuffle through all these pages or hope that if I type in a search result, it'll find me the exact note I'm looking for. And especially if I forget where the note is, I link it, I click the name, and it opens the note. There I find whatever information specific to the dragon I need, as well as any other links that relate to the dragon. Mostly on this note, I just have its age, size, the temperament it has, the resources at its disposal. Or, if I added to the notes a dragon on the fly, I could go in and ensure that this information was correctly added if needed for future reference. Something like they talked to the dragon and maybe this dragon has a feud with another dragon and they're like, hey, I'll go kill him if you... And that buys them time. That's really all my players are going for. They're just trying to buy time. But me, at this point in time, not having that connecting piece, that other NPC, if they were to pull one out of the air, I could easily drop the name in, come back to it, fill it out, move on. Two of my favorite aspects for this is I have a fantasy calendar in there, and it has graph view. The calendar is great, so I can reference upcoming dates easier. It also allows me to see the cycles of the moon, and that helps me avoid moments where players notice that every night seems to be a full moon. Also, I expect my players to die of old age, and having their birth dates right there on the calendar, coming up in 10 in-game days as of now, is the first birthday for one of my players. I, as a DM, am curious how they will process this information, the fact that I am being attentive to the game time and tracking in the game. It's not the grand scheme of things, and I feel like it's something that's just overlooked in most games I played, and people assume you'll either max out your stats and become a god and we quit playing, or you will die in battle. Those seem like the only real choices for most modern games, and I'm guilty of playing that mindset. It's just a nice little tool to have. For the graph view, it isn't really anything terribly special, but as I said previously, it allows me to feel like there's depth to my world. It opens up, and each note is a visible dot. I can change the colors depending on the type of note it is. If it's a NPC, the PC, a town, a dragon, an encounter, or lore, every note there that has a link to another note is tethered to it by a line on the graph. And the world you're creating becomes this intricate spider web where you can see how everything is connected. For the current game, I haven't spent too much time here. But for my last 5e game, my players were making some radical choices. I would come here and find the party, as well as the thing they just made an impact in the world to follow. I'd follow the lines from one thing to another, and it just gave me the better sense of what the ripple effect would be after every session. Who's affected, what's affected, what could be the outcomes. It seems that we're likely getting there in my 3-5 game. They are now playing long enough and making big world choices such as the dragon, as I mentioned, and their choices are making an impact. But yes, the question no one asked, my answer to this is the way to play is at my house in a D&D room, pencil paper. Failing that, my laptop with my notes on Obsidian, my soundboard, voice changer of voice mod, and Discord for the voice, using MapTool for a VTT, a simple setup that can literally be replicated free minus the expense of the computer. That's all I have for you guys. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have a good one.